What's going on, YouTube? How you doing? I'm just saying, VBMer here, filling in for Uncle Mike while he's over in the Philippines. We're gonna get into this next video. Fifth grade teacher impregnated by a 12-year-old. Let's go ahead and get into this.
New Jersey elementary school teacher is accused of sexually abusing a student for years and having his baby, despite him being a child himself. And get this shocking case came to light after the alleged victim's father noticed an uncanny resemblance between the teacher's baby and his own son. Now, the teacher is facing serious charges as disturbing details emerge from their alleged relationship. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is a Law and Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to this? Yeah, well, Morgan & Morgan is stepping in to fight to hold these food companies accountable. With decades of experience fighting large corporations, they are ready to stand up for what families deserve: justice. So if your child under 21 has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or fatty liver disease, then visit www.forthepeople.com/food to learn more. 34-year-old Laura Karen was a fifth grade teacher at Middle Township Elementary School out in New Jersey when she was arrested last week for child sex crimes. Prosecutors say she raped a student from 2016 to 2020, starting when he was just 11 years old. But here's where the case takes an even more disgusting and disturbing turn, because in 2019, when the victim was 13, Karen allegedly gave birth to his child. She was 28 at the time. So how did authorities uncover this? How did they find out about this alleged abuse? This is different. So it all started with a social media post, apparently, because it's being reported that in December of 2024, the victim's father made a Facebook post pointing out that Karen's 5-year-old child bore a striking resemblance to both himself and his son, the alleged victim in this case. This post apparently raised a lot of red flags and sparked an investigation. We have a lot to get into. I want to talk about this more. I want to bring on former prosecutor and current sexual misconduct investigator Dan Shore, who's also the author of 2 books. Am I right, Dan? What are the titles of those books, in case people?
One is called Final Table, which came out a couple of years ago, and I have a new novel coming out in August that'll be distributed by Simon & Schuster. It's called Open Bar. They're both about sexual misconduct issues, and you could find them Amazon, anywhere else that books are sold.
All right, sounds good. So now I'm happy to have you here to talk about this, because this is a weird one. I mean, it's a disturbing one, but the idea that the victim's father had seen and made this post, and that's what sparked an investigation. Does it usually happen like that?
It's certainly unusual, and we live in an age where people are posting their thoughts on Facebook in a very unfiltered way, and usually you think if a father suspected that, he might go straight to law enforcement or to a school authority. Here, according to law enforcement, it started with a Facebook post where he was saying that the child looked like him and his son. And people fortunately picked up on that. It's important that if someone sees something online and there's an indication that there might be something egregious that happened, such as...
Could you imagine this man sees this baby that looks like him and his son, and imagine this man being married and his wife saw it, thinking that this baby looked like her son and her husband? Can you imagine the issues that can spark from that? It's not funny, but I mean, like, and then her husband's like, I didn't cheat with the teacher. And the wife is like, you think I'm stupid? This kid looks just like you. Like, I don't even understand.
Child sex abuse, that someone did escalate that and it did get to law enforcement, and they were able to investigate it, because a lot of times people see things online and they just figure, well, it's not my problem, I'm not going to do anything about it. Apparently other people did raise flags about this, and that led to this investigation and this arrest.
We covered a case recently where somebody posted on social media, I forgot which platform, that they were the victim of abuse that had been going on at the school, and that, you know, things go viral, videos go viral. People said, oh, that same thing happened to me. And so it's amazing when you think about the power of social media. We talk about the negative influences of it, but the powerful influences of it, actually spreading a message and gaining awareness and traction, that you're seeing something like that. Now, Going back to this case, according to detectives, Karen had reportedly been this victim's fifth grade teacher, as well as his brothers. And she reportedly befriended their parents, gained their trust, even offering to babysit the couple's three children at her home, which is what we're about to get into, is where much of this abuse happened. Dan, do you usually see that where somebody will befriend the parents, as a way to get into that household or bring the children into their environment? You go after the parents, you go after the family, and that becomes even more concerning about who do you trust?
Absolutely. I think the stereotype in society for parents is to worry about the child being grabbed in a park by a stranger or on a playground. And there's this stranger danger that if I turn my head for a few seconds, my child's going to be taken or something dangerous is going to happen. Those things do happen, but the much greater danger in society is people that you trust, people that ingratiate themselves to a family, become people who the family looks to as someone, well, they're safe because they're with this person who we know. And unfortunately, most cases of sex abuse that I've seen in my career, and I've been investigating these for about 25 years, they generally involve people that the parents knew or the child knew. And those are the ones that are often the ones who are committing acts like this. And it's tough when you want to trust someone. I know as a parent, you want to trust the people in your community, you want to trust the caregivers. Unfortunately, those are often the people who abuse that trust, or at least the people who commit sex abuse tend to be the ones who are in positions of trust.
Unfortunately, you are very right, and that's a real big issue that we're seeing a lot, particularly the stories we cover here on Sidebar. Now, at first, these kids, so the victim, the brother, the sister, they would have had these sleepovers, or they had these sleepovers at Karen's home. But eventually, for some reason that hasn't really been released, the victim and his siblings, they started living full-time with Karen. And in fact, during her first appearance at her hearing last week, the judge referred to Karen as a, quote, resource family parent for the children, which is, when in New Jersey, our understanding is what they refer to as foster parents. And Karen attended that hearing virtually, by the way, from jail. But during an interview with detectives, the victim's sister told them some very chilling details about what she witnessed. She said that she would often wake up to find her brother sleeping in Karen's bed, despite the fact that the kids shared a room upstairs. Even more disturbing, she claimed that Karen would enter the bathroom and lock the door when her brother was showering. And the victim's brother told police he once witnessed Karen sexually assaulting his brother when they thought he was asleep. And by the way, Dan, just to stop there, it's one thing in a lot of these cases we have the testimony or the potential testimony of the victim, the child themselves. The idea of, at a trial, they're going to be the only ones who'll testify to the abuse. But now if you have other eyewitnesses, other children, that raises this to a different level.
Definitely, because child sex abuse generally does happen with no one else around. So it is hard sometimes to prove those cases. And of course, all defendants are innocent until proven guilty. We'll hear as this case proceeds what her defense is, but certainly having another sibling who's saying that they witnessed something, including the actions that you described, that supports the allegations here in a significant way. Now, from the defendant's side, they'll have to demonstrate if they decide to contest these charges, why the sister might be saying that if it's not true. But if it is true, that certainly corroborates the allegations. And we have a child here who is supposedly the biological son of the abuse victim. So just DNA testing from that will certainly prove that there was sex abuse that occurred since the son was underage, and underage in a very significant way. This isn't someone who is just barely underage. This is someone who is very underage, very young. And if this is true, this was a significant violation of trust and very damaging to that child.
Yep, 100%. You can't forget. It's so disturbing to say, but that baby is not only a living child who is now born into what is a very difficult set of circumstances, but also is now a key piece of evidence. Think about it like that. So going back to what I mentioned before, one of the siblings also claimed that after that baby was born, the victim moved into Karen's bedroom permanently. When interviewed by police earlier this month, the victim, who's now an adult, confirmed that there was a sexual relationship with his former teacher. He said that he had remained in contact with Karen up until his father's Facebook post in December. And in that post, the man said that Karen's child looked a lot like himself and his son. He noted in the post that Karen had been his son's teacher. That post was brought to the attention of the school superintendent, who then called the police. That's how this all spiraled. And according to the criminal complaint, which has been viewed by the Courier Post, After the Facebook post was published in December, the victim reportedly called his younger brother, confessed he was the father of Karen's baby, and the victim's sister also apparently told police that her brother texted her to admit he was the father, but demanded that she keep it a secret so Karen wouldn't get in trouble. That is a very common symptom we see as well, right? The idea of why hasn't this been reported earlier? Why is this only coming out now? It could be that you don't want to complicate the life of the mother of your child, or these victims or these alleged victims, when they're so young, they don't want to get the teachers in trouble. They might not realize that anything wrong is going on, Dan. There's a number of reasons why we see this not being reported sooner, right?
Yeah,
Okay. I'm just going to say this because I don't think it's said enough. The number of boys that lose their innocence,
Yeah, innocence.
older women, is a staggering number. If you actually speak to a lot of men and you ask them when they lost their innocence, at what age, and then ask them the age of the person that they lost their innocence with, I will almost guarantee you that you will find more men that will admit to losing their innocence to a female that is significantly older than them, and dare I say, an adult woman. And for some reason, this has come across almost as something to be proud of, but it's really not. It's abuse. And just because, it's a boy and it's a young boy and a woman and not a little girl and a man, does not mean that it's not abuse. It is something that is all too common, and it's not talked about like as much as it should be. That's what I'll say about it.
Yeah. I totally agree, Steph.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going.
We see that victims of sex abuse of all ages, including adults, there's misplaced self-blame. There's sometimes affinity towards the abuser because they did have an intimate relationship together, and they may feel they don't want to get them in trouble. Also, if you just think about society, what do we tell kids all the time? Trust your teachers, listen to your teachers, don't talk back to your teachers, right? So children are raised to think, well, my teacher can do no wrong, they're good people. And if the teacher is grooming them and taking advantage of that grooming and that trust to sexually abuse them, a lot of children may not understand what's wrong, what's right, or if they do, they're afraid of retaliation, they're afraid of getting in trouble. Very often, we don't know about this case in particular, but a lot of times the abusers of underage people will say to them, if people find out, you will get in trouble, you'll be punished, you'll have severe consequences. And that can really ring true to somebody who's afraid to speak up.
So what do we know about Laura Karen? Well, she was apparently raised in Pennsylvania, attended Cabrini University, which has since closed down. She played on the school's women's basketball team, studied elementary education according to the university's basketball roster. She started working at Middle Township Elementary School number 2 in 2014, not long after graduating. This is according to New Jersey pension records. And the school district says that Karen has been placed on paid administrative leave pending the investigation. In a statement, Superintendent Dr. David Salvo said, when the district was first advised of the allegations, the staff member was immediately placed on and continues to be on paid administrative leave. And Karen is currently being held at the Cape May County Correctional Facility. I'll talk about what happens if she's convicted, but the school face any liability here, Dad?
It depends what they knew. If they knew that something was going on, or if they failed to have appropriate policies and procedures to protect this child, then there could be liability. It really depends on their response, how involved they were with policing, what their teachers were doing, where the misconduct happened. Did it all happen away from the school, or did anything happen on school grounds? Those are some of the factors that lawyers would look at when determining whether there's liability here for the school.
So it's not just if they knew, it's should they have known. That's also a fair assessment too, right?
Right. If it was reasonable for someone to know if, for instance, if other people had reported suspicions and nothing was done with those
Right.
suspicions, and we see that with other schools. I investigate educational, institutional sex abuse, in a lot of places, and very often there's rumors going around, and rumors may be not true, but rumors may be something that a school should look into to see if there is veracity behind them. And sometimes schools don't, and that can often lead to liability. That you heard a lot of people talking that something bad was happening and you didn't take steps to follow up on that. So we don't know what the situation was here, but I'm sure there'll be an investigation to look into that.
Right. And now, to be clear, I'm not sure if this is a surprise to anybody, but if convicted, she could face some serious time behind bars. It's our understanding in New Jersey, first-degree crimes like aggravated sexual assault carry sentences of 10 to 20 years in prison. You have second-degree crimes like sexual assault, child endangerment that could result in 5 to 10-year prison sentences. Dan, I don't know if you're familiar with the law on that. That's what we found, but correct me if I'm wrong. But generally speaking, I would imagine it's a long prison sentence. And if she's convicted, would it be towards the longer range that rather than the shorter range?
Yeah, the ranges that you just mentioned are consistent with other states that I've worked with. And I think that because the child was so young when the alleged sex abuse started, then the prison sentence, if she's convicted, would be towards the higher end of that. If someone had no criminal history and someone was barely under the age of consent, it would still lead to a conviction and there would be some kind of punishment. But I think there are so many more aggravating factors here. The fact that it went on for so long, it wasn't one time. This was allegedly going on for years. There was another child who was in the home, which, as you mentioned before, that person's a witness, but also that child might also be a victim being exposed to sex abuse occurring while that child was also in the home. So there's a lot of aggravating factors here that, if true, would lead to a higher sentence.
By the way, if you're listening to this story, you might say, why does this sound strangely familiar? Well, the unfortunate reason is because we recently told you here on Sidebar about the case of Alyssa McCommon. So this is a former Tennessee teacher who's going to spend more than 2 decades in prison after she admitted she raped one of her students, causing her to become pregnant. The abuse started when he was just 12 years old, around the same age as the alleged victim in the Karen case out in New Jersey. And McCommon was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole for child rape, statutory rape, sexual exploitation of a minor. Her case, McCommon's case, made headlines, especially because of all the twists and turns and the shocking details. According to a police investigation, McCommon worked as a 5th grade teacher, just like Karen, and then a 4th grade teacher at Tennessee elementary schools. The investigation uncovered allegations that McCommon targeted multiple students, typically by befriending them online while playing video games. She then used social media to convince the children to send nude photos and engage in sexual activities. It's believed that McCommon abused as many as 21 children. And when she was booked into jail in September of 2023, she was able to post a $25,000 bond, but her release had a very specific condition: no contact with the victim or any minors other than her own kids. What do you think happened? McCommon couldn't really follow the rules. She was rearrested, this time for stalking one of the children that she was accused of victimizing, even sending him texts that he would, quote, regret this. She went right back to jail on new criminal charges of coercion of a witness, aggravated stalking, harassment, and then during a court hearing, the stunning revelation that she's pregnant. And prosecutors played a recording where McCommon told the victim she was going to have his child.
Just forget we ever talked, okay? I'll raise this baby and I love this baby. And I'll do it by myself. I'm going to raise this baby. I can do this. I tried to tell you when it comes out looking like you. We don't have to talk anymore. Just please God tell me you're not going to say anything. I'll never speak to you again.
As we mentioned, we talked about DNA testing before. The DNA test.
Are you freaking kidding me?
This is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Right. So I don't know what happened then. It kicked me off. But
they let her. First of all, let me tell you what I have an issue with. You let this chick out, and she's abusing about 21 of her students, right?
don't use that word though. Just say A-ing.
We can't say that either.
No,
you're taking advantage of at least 21 of your students.
Yep.
Okay. and you go to jail, and you post bond of $25,000. They tell you you cannot have any contact with any minors except for your children. No, you're not supposed to have contact with your children unless it's supervised visitation. No, you don't even need contact with your own children at this point. Only time you get to see your children, somebody needs to be watching. You cannot be trusted around minors. How we know that she's not doing this to her own children? This is absolutely out of control. Yes, supervised visitation only with your children. No minors, period, by yourself. Then you go and start stalking this little kid, telling them that you're pregnant and crying to them about not to say anything. Are you freaking kidding? Are you freaking kidding? This is why.
Welcome
Okay?
to Steph, everybody. Welcome
This
to what Steph
morning,
does.
we talked about this and how this morning we said Stephanie cannot be boots on the ground because Stephanie is not going to be able to just go help the kids without smacking the holy hellfire out of someone. When I find out what you've been doing to these kids, I can't do it. You're going to have to be jumping on Stephanie all the time because Stephanie is going to be like, I'll be right back. And as soon as I say, I'll be right back, you know where I'm going. Because I'm telling you, like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way. Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way you get to do this to children and then you peaceably get to be arrested, go to jail peaceably, and, spend the, whatever many years in jail peaceably, and you don't get hands and feet, paws laid on. No. I'm going.
Later proved that McCommon was indeed pregnant with the victim's child. And it was later revealed by the district attorney that the mother of the victim has custody of this grandchild. So in addition to 25 years in prison, the judge ordered that McCommon has to register as a violent sex offender, can't have any contact with the victims, and of course her teaching license was also revoked. Dan, I'll give you an opportunity to talk about that case, but I also wanted to ask you what happens to the child in these circumstances. Would it be that the child then goes to live with the victim in this case, this young man who's now an adult? Going back to the Karen case, what usually happens to the children who are conceived during the course of sexual assaults?
It's another really challenging part of this because the person who is in prison obviously is not going, and allegedly, or maybe once they're convicted, not just allegedly committed sex abuse, they're not going to be given custody for a child like this. Maybe they'll get some visitation. And the other person who was a minor when the sex abuse happened, even if they've reached an age where they're an adult, they still might not be in a position in life to raise a child, right? Even just because someone reached the age of 18 or early 20s, they may not be ready to start caring for them. So sometimes you look for other family members, maybe a grandparent, uncle, aunt, but it is really challenging to find someone who could give that person a stable home when they were brought into this world in such an unstable, challenging way.
What would be her defense, by the way? You mentioned it before that they might come up with defenses, maybe say that the victim in this case, the siblings are all lying, but again, the DNA test of the baby would be pretty conclusive. Tell me what possible defense, other than, I guess, pleading guilty?
Yeah. Right. Well, certainly if there's DNA showing that the child is the biological child of the two people and one is underage, that you can't contest that in a serious way. Maybe you can contest some of the aggravating factors. Maybe the defendant can say that it wasn't really going on for as long as the other person said it was, that it was a 1 or 2 time thing. If there's another sibling or another witness who's corroborating some of this, you have to, if the defense attorney would probably try to come up with a strategy to say what's their motivation to fabricate, but it's really challenging. Again, you have DNA, you have another witness in the case that we've been talking about. That's really hard to contest. So the defendant could plead guilty and ask for a lighter sentence. It would be tough with all the aggravating factors to get a light sentence, but maybe they could reduce some prison time in exchange for pleading guilty and not making the victim go through a trial.
I don't know. Really, really disturbing case. But Dan Shore, thanks for coming on, breaking it down with us. Really appreciate it.
It's always great talking with you. Thank you.
Also, one more quick update for you in this case. So after a pretrial detention hearing today,
Karen was actually released from jail while her case moves forward, and her next court appearance is scheduled for the end of February. We'll keep an eye on it. And that's all we have for you here on this episode of Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube or check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.
So you mean to tell me they didn't release her once, but they released her twice? That's what you're telling me? They released her twice?
Yep.
Maybe I'm confused. Maybe it was two different people. Maybe I'm tripping. They released her twice. That's what I thought.
That's why I got to as well.
While she's on a trial. Yeah, put this nefarious person back on the streets. Why not? You know what? I can't talk about what would happen on YouTube because I can't even say the word abused on YouTube. So I can't talk about it. But you know what? That yeah.
It just say it interfered with. Let's say that.
I'm going to the thesaurus and I'm going to get some real words because YouTube is not going to keep us from saying factual words and factual. You don't want that word? We'll find another word that YouTube hasn't struck down yet. Okay, how about that? I'm going to get a thesaurus so I can have every word for this word so that you don't like this word. I'll use the other words that mean this word. How about that?
Yeah,
I'm going to do that tonight. Because we're not going to keep playing these roundabout games with YouTube, but you got us making up stupid words for, serious stuff. Like, we're just not going to keep doing it. But anyway, we getting out of here. Guys. You let me know what you think in the comments. Take it light, take it slow. Tell them, Uncle Mike, I'm just saying VB and Murph tell you so. See you guys later. Bye.
Bye.